Hey guys, thanks for watching. The first player we're going to look at is Yngwie Malmsteen. Doesn't really need any introduction, so I won't try. Wear a Rolex on your right wrist, that'll help. Being Swedish helps. Being into Ferraris and classical music will also help too. In terms of actual guitar playing, well, the Phrygian dominant mode is his kind of thing. You might know it's the Phrygian major mode. Let's have a little look at what he does. This whole lick uses the E Phrygian dominant mode. Everybody knows this kind of sound. So that's that kind of thing that's going on. The other thing that he does a lot of is hammer on and pull off before he does a descending lick. So you can kind of nail that sound by getting your target note there. Hammer on, pull off, and then start descending the rest of the lick. Bingo! Okay, so somebody who needs no introduction, Edward Van Halen, the Dutch guitar maestro. Man, we owe a lot to Eddie. Even if you don't really sound like him or use any of his kind of licks, there's no denying the impact he had on the world of guitar playing. You know, tapping, there's much dispute about who was the first person to tap. Who cares? Eddie was the first person to bring it to public attention. Things that I emulated in this one was the whammy bar scoops and the tapped triplets. It's very popular, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So let's have a look at that. So those whammy bar scoops are really damn simple to play. You just grab any old note really. Literally just push down on the bar. And what I did here is a typical Eddie lick, which is to push down on the bar, is what we call a scoop, and then pull off and hammer back on again. So there you go. And the other thing, like I said, tapped triplets, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So and I'll just go down the A minor pentatonic. And there you have it, some instant Eddie magic. Okay, it's Jake E. Lee time. Ozzy's right-hand man for a couple of albums in the 80s. I first became aware of Jake on the Bark at the Moon album, which is the first Ozzy album I ever heard as well. So it's fair to say, I'm a big fan of Jake. And open strings is something that leaps out to me when listening to Jake. And his repeating triad shapes. If you listen to a solo like Ultimate Sin, the end of Bark at the Moon, stuff like that, you'll hear this kind of repeating motion, and it's usually triads, 3 notes. Okay, so let's have a look at a couple of these things. Okay, so as I mentioned, open strings. That kind of thing. Literally I'm just playing the open string, hammering on, pull off, picking it again. And the open B string sounds a bit weird over the A power chord. It'll work out as a 9th over the A chord. The other thing that Jake does a lot of is using kind of like triads, 3 notes, and just repeating them in a fashion like. This lick I kind of was influenced by one of his live solos. I think it's the Salt Lake City show from 1984. You guys probably know the one I mean. During Suicide Solution he goes a bit crazy and goes all over the place, and there's some really nice A minor triads here. So the open strings and the repeating triads were the things that leapt out as Jake trademarks there. So get a load of those, nick them, put them into your style, and yeah, let's go back to the 80s, man. Okay, I thought it very fitting after Jake E. Lee pops in for a little bit of a jam session that Randy Rhoads pops in after him and they play some back-to-back leads. Again, Randy doesn't really need an introduction. I mean, if you're watching this video, you're going to know all about these dudes anyway. But hopefully you might discover some that you're not aware of. So, if you do, as a result of this video, that's great. Randy could be described as veering into slight neoclassical territory sometimes. But I would say the majority of his work is based around the natural minor scale and the pentatonic minor, stuff like that, you know, brilliant stuff, classic metal stuff really. So let's look at a couple of the features that I picked out in his playing. Okay, Randy was very fond of using trills, you know, ascending or descending, you know, something like the Mr. Crowley solo, stuff like that. So, you know, we got... And the thing with doing trills is there's no exact amount of notes that you should, you know, hammer on and pull off. You know, you generally just you find a groove. Your fingers kind of discover their natural speed. It's usually you just trill as fast as you can, and how many notes you fit in is just how long it goes on for. You know. But the classic Randy lick to me is this one. So it's basically a blues lick, an A pentatonic minor blues lick. But it adds the minor 6, which gives it a natural minor sound, like... So we got... So what makes this lick sound so cool is the whole bluesy aspect of it, but allied to the dark sound of the minor 6. So, you know, it makes you kind of go, hang on, what's going on there? You know, and that's a classic Randy lick. So yeah, get a load of that. Okay, now it's time to get surfing with Mr. Satriani. I have a lot of respect for Joe Satriani. He's one of those players that really opened my eyes up to what was possible on the guitar, or what was impossible to my mind at that time. Of course, you know, Surfing with the Aliens, one of the most important guitar instrumental albums of all time, very influential. And Joe is big legato man, you know, which is obviously what I went for in this thing. And pick tapping is the other thing that I chose to focus on this technique. Pick tapping is actually, I don't actually enjoy playing it. I actually find it a bit of a pain in the butt. Pick tapping, it's a very tense technique. You have to be very tense to do it. You know, maybe I'm just not very good at it. You know, I don't care. But it's Joe's thing, so I had to include it here. So let's have a little gander at what's going on. He does these. Literally, it's easy. You're just hammering on. So. and you can cut the note off at the end, like that, or just keep it going. As I said before, pick tapping is a technique which requires you to use the pick, obviously, to tap instead of your finger. It's got a very sharp sound to it, and there's no actual real designation for the exact speed of the pick tapping itself. You know, literally it's just about, you know, tensing your arm up and just allowing it to just kind of, you know, I don't know, shake almost. But it's something you got to experiment with. So yeah, surfing with Satriani, there you go. Okay, now it's time to take a look at the style of Steve Vai. Brilliant player, great musician, just a brilliant person really. You know, he's a cool dude. What can you say about Steve? You know, if you really don't like Steve Vai, you know, you've got a real problem, man. You know, there's nothing wrong with that guy, he's cool. You know, he's a master of the whammy bar. Again, like Joe Satriani, you know, he's great with legato, you know, it's a big feature of his playing. I'd describe his playing as very slippy slidey, you know, very cool like that. And that's the kind of thing that leaps out to me, is I hear a lot of this kind of sliding on one string kind of licks, you know, up and down, up and down, up and down, and the way he ascends in fifths. So what the hell am I talking about? Well, I'll show you. So the slippy slidey licks that I was talking about, this kind of thing. So the chord in the background is an A5 power chord, and I'm using the Lydian mode, which is a very popular Vai kind of thing to do, and I'm just taking the scale, but instead of like moving through it diatonically, like, you know, Steve kind of like goes up, down, up, down, up, down, so like down, up, that kind of thing. So that's a very, very popular Vai trick to do. And the other thing is this kind of lick. Again, you can find this basic shape, you know, that kind of root fifth, root fifth, root fifth shape, and you can move it around. You can move it and make sure it stays within the scale, or you can even go outside of the scale you're in. It doesn't really matter. It's more about the idea of stepping up, and it has a kind of intervallic sound, which means wide interval. So there you go, a couple of Steve Vai tricks there for you. Hey guys, next up is Slash. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. You can do your hateful comments. Yeah, Slash isn't a shredder. What the hell's he doing in this list? But, you know, you can't deny his impact on the world of guitar, and the guy's got some great licks and a great tone. Two things that I identify in his style are his descending pull-off licks and his double stop bends. Let's take a closer look at those. Near the tail end of this lick there's a sequence which I'm talking about here. That kind of thing. So basically it's really simple. Play a note, pull off, hammer on, pull off, that kind of thing. And it kind of staggers over the beat. It never has to be absolutely perfect. It kind of cascades over the beat. And it almost has like a kind of lazy quality to it. You know, it's very relaxed, you know, I mean, it works brilliantly. And the other thing is the double stop bend. What's a double stop? Basically it's kind of like two notes in a bending scenario. I'm not even sure if double stop is the correct term, it might not be. You can just call it a bluesy bend, but bend it up and then you hit the other string whilst you're still bending, and then bring it down. And the two notes bleed into each other. That gives it that kind of bluesy effect. So there we go, there's Slash. Okay, next up, Ritchie Blackmore. Ritchie, you gotta love Ritchie. I love all the stories about him, the temper and all that sort of stuff, you know, and the wizard hats. Listening to Ritchie, the things I identify is a kind of staccato sound. It's very choppy. You know, he uses his middle finger along with his pick to get a lot of these choppy sounds. So I'll show you what I mean. Let's have a little look. So there we go, I bend it up and really snap it. And it's not a soft technique, I'm not going... No, I'm really grabbing it. You know, his technique is, well, not his technique, but his sound is very snappy, very choppy. And that's the thing that stands out about his playing to me. So there you go, nick that and sound a little bit like Ritchie. Now it's time for some George Lynch. Man, this guy can rock. I first heard of his playing when I found a second-hand tape, like an old copy of Beast from the East by Dokken. And the pinch harmonics just blew me away. I'd never heard anything that squealed like that, you know, it was amazing. Two characteristics of George's playing are, as I just said, the pinch harmonics and his use of the diminished fifth, you might want to call it the flattened fifth. I couldn't have a George type solo without those two aspects, so, you know, let's take a closer look. So here, that note there, the C, the chord underneath it is an F sharp. So, that note would be a flat fifth. That's a common interval that George uses in his playing, but he makes it sound so demonic, it's just the way he does it. As for the pinch harmonics, the thing that makes it sound different to me is I think George plays them a lot closer back to the bridge. Because if you play a pinch harmonic closer here, it has a completely different sound. But here, it has this, I don't know, high-pitched squeal. You know, hitting it a bit closer, they're a bit harder to get than they are when you're closer to the neck. But if you persevere with it, you will get some of those ultra screaming George Lynch style pinch harmonics, so persevere with that. And so yeah, there's a little bit of George for you. Okay, so now we're going to look at some guy called Dave Murray for some band, oh, what are they called? Iron something. Oh, I don't know, it just escapes me. Iron... I can't remember. Anyway, is a blonde guitar player who plays in some band from London. You might have heard of them. And what characterises Dave? Lots of trills. Lots and lots and lots and lots of trills. Lots of hammers on, pulls off, stuff like that. And blonde hair, and having a really big grin on your face. So you've got to smile a lot to sound like Dave Murray, okay? If you're not smiling, you know, it won't happen. So let's have a look. Okay, so a lot of Dave's solos have, like I mentioned earlier, just a hell of a load of trills in there, you know. And I guess it's legato really, but it's loads of, you know, hammers on. When you're playing trills or you're making a solo up which uses them, it's not about exactly how many there are in it. It's going to be down to what your finger speed is and just what you're feeling at the time. So it's not an exact science, you know, it's just something that's very natural. I'm sure if you spoke to Dave, he'd tell you, you know, it's just off the cuff. He couldn't tell you exactly how many trills are there, and he probably wouldn't play them exactly the same slow as he does fast, so you just got to jump in and do that. And the other thing, there's a classic way that he ends a lot of his phrases or ends a lot of his solos, which is this. Literally, what is it? It's just a hammer-on, pull-off and a slide. You know, off the top of my head, I probably just can't remember all the solos where he does that, but there are loads. I mean, listen to Power Slave, and you'll get the feel for that kind of thing. So yeah, remember to smile, and you'll sound like Dave. Okay, now it's time to take a look at the late great Dimebag. It would be suicide to try and sound exactly like him. Nobody could ever sound like him. I mean, the tone alone is just out of this world. The things that leap out to me about his playing was the way he used the pentatonic scale, the way he would combine legato and picking. You know, he's not one of those guys that's like all alternate picking all the way through. You don't get these machine gun type licks with him. You know, it's all about slippery kind of legato stuff with picking to kind of sustain that, you know, and then just insane whammy bar squeals. So this lick here, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, you know. It's not picked all the way through, it's got enough picking to kind of give it enough juice to keep it going, but there's a lot of, you know, pull-offs and hammer-ons going on there, you know. Okay, I actually had to learn this specifically for this lesson. It's not something I do. I actually don't use the whammy bar in my everyday guitar playing at all, so I'm a little bit out of my territory here. But anyway, the way I worked it in was I had a note here which enabled me to kind of pull off of that and then scoop down in and then catch the note. Okay, Zakk Wylde time. Wild by name, wild by nature, wild vibrato, wild picking technique. I mean, that's pretty much it, isn't it? The dude's a beast, you know, really cool player. What attitude. If I had to sum up his way of playing the guitar, I'd probably say violent. In case of the obvious things we can't ignore about Zakk's playing is his extremely wide vibrato, and his just super fast alternate picking pentatonic licks. So, I'd be a fool not to highlight those elements, which is what I did, so let's look at those. So at this point in the overall main track it goes to the key of E or E minor, and there's like E5 power chords in the background. So of course E minor pentatonic was the natural choice here, but rather than just go, I decided to use the flattened fifth again. A group of 6 notes played in triplet fashion, and it's a popular type of thing that Zach does. So you just got to really dig in that. So that heavy vibrato on the end. The other thing that you'll see a lot in Zach's playing is just this mad technique. What is it? Well, basically you're just sliding up on the lowest string that you have. For me it's the E string. And getting to a particular fret, it doesn't matter which one, it's just high up somewhere. I'm on the 19th, but yeah, it doesn't matter. And just make the vibrato as wide as you can. You know, anything like a whole tone or over or something like that is the trick. And it's more about an actual effect rather than a technique, it's just an effect. And that's something I got from Zach, and he's the first person I heard doing that. So yeah, some wild style playing there. Yo, so now we're going to look at the style of Uli John Roth, that German nutter, who came to prominence with the Scorpions, brilliant band. Again, he's got a staccato sound, very choppy, and I think a lot of these guys, I don't know what it is, but maybe it's just the fact that back then there was less distortion, and they wanted more aggression. I think they just had to pick harder or something, because they really do have this sound where, you know, the pick just digs in and really grabs the notes. And again, that staccato thing I'm talking about, I use a lot of upstrokes to get this sound. So you pick and then your hand comes back again against the string to kind of stop it happening. You could almost say it's like a rest stroke, where you pick a note and then you immediately deaden it. So upstrokes are very useful for that, but you can combine it with downstrokes as well. So just experiment with that and really get the idea of that choppiness. There you go, Germanic madness right there. Okay, time for some M.A.B. Michelangelo Batio. One thing to me that is characteristic in his playing is, and you'll hear me say the same thing about Vinnie Moore and John Petrucci in particular, is just this insane level of precision. Everything is perfect, everything is so goddamn clear, and he goes from a sweep picked arpeggio through an alternate picking run to an absolutely perfect bend right at the end, you know, and it sounds like there's no transitions, you know, it's just there, straight away, blah blah blah, done, you know, and that's really inspiring. Whether you dig Michael's playing or not, or whether you dig that type of guitar playing in general, you know, you just have to marvel at that sheer, just perfection of sound. And even if you don't like the sound of the music, you know, hopefully it'll inspire you to reach new levels of ability and creativity with yourself. So after the arpeggio beginning, I immediately go into some ascending 6-note patterns, groups of 6. So. And Michael is one of those guys that can shred just as comfortably on the bridge pickup or on the neck pickup, it doesn't matter. So once we get to the top here, it's all perfectly formed, it's all perfectly in place, it's, you know, like I said, goes straight from picking lick to perfect vibrato. You never really hear him go out of time with the backing, everything is just spot on, perfect. Okay, so now we're going to look at the amazing Vinnie Moore. You know, he's a really admired guitar player, and I think it's because of his amazing precision, but just the melody. He manages to fit into everything, you know, nothing's wasted. You know, the things that always stand out about Vinnie's playing to me is just the precision. And I'm not just talking about technical precision, I'm just talking about everything sounds so clean. Everything just sounds so right. If you don't know this guy, just go and check him out. Time Odyssey, Mind's Eye, you know, just all of those records. Out of Nowhere is a fantastic record. So yeah, go and check him out. Okay, the two things of Vinnie which I decided to steal is his linear picking patterns up and down the neck, you know. But a feature of his is that he goes up and then steps back down and then goes up again, so like... See, he went up and then came down instead of going all the way up. Like that, so you go... Okay? And the thing with his precision, well, the second half of this lick, where I have the arpeggio climbing up and then hitting those notes at the end, everything is exactly in its place. Nothing is kind of lazy or sloppy over the beat. Everything is bang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, blah, blah. You know, everything in its place, everything sounding perfect and on the money, you know? And that's Vinnie. Michael Schenker time. The man needs no introduction. He's influenced pretty much every guitar player that you would care to name who was in a heavy metal band in the 80s. I'm sure if you talk to the members of Iron Maiden, Metallica, Megadeth, they'll all tell you that at some point they're influenced by Michael's playing. Just listen to all the players that use hammer-ons and chop their pick into the guitar for that staccato pick sound, you know. And anyone who's used a wah pedal, hello, you know what I'm talking about. So let's look at some of Michael's signature techniques. Very much like his contemporaries, Uli John Roth, Ritchie Blackmore, people like that, he does a lot of what I call this choppy staccato picking. So like in the lick I've got, you know. Of course I've got a wah pedal on halfway position, but I don't need it here. Don't be afraid of upstrokes. They're great, you know, pick up and then just bring your pick back to the side of the string again to chop off that note. And it helps things pop out, you know, and sound staccato. Of course, it wouldn't be right to talk about Michael without talking about his rapid hammer-ons. It looks pretty simple when you go to do it. I'm doing this in an E minor pentatonic position, and I'm going on the B string for the 12th to the 15th, back to the 12th, and then hammering on to the G string using my second finger here. Some people might like to do it just using their third finger, but if you can do it either way. And it might sound like there's no real timing to that, but there is. If you focus on the first note of every one. So every time I'm hitting that note there on the 12th fret, that is kind of being the time marker for staying in place of the lick, you know. So if you really emphasise that note there, the first note, you can keep your place and not lose your head. So there you go. Okay, now it's time to look at the playing of Andy LaRocque, the Swedish guitar maestro, and the right-hand man of none other than King Diamond. If you don't know who Andy LaRocque is, or if you, believe it or not, don't even know who King Diamond is, I suggest you pause this video and go and educate yourself, and then come back, because then you'll be able to appreciate what I'm talking about. Andy kind of uses the whammy bar scoops that I discussed earlier when referring to Eddie Van Halen, and he builds a lot of melodies with that, you know, and harmonises. And the other thing I like about what Andy does is he does really brutal alternate picking, but for me it sounds like he's using the bridge pickup rather than taking the kind of the more obvious route of using the neck pickup like most shredders do. And I like the effect that it gives. So let's take a look at what's going on. Okay, so the whammy bar scoops that we looked at earlier with Eddie's style, a typical kind of LaRocque melody would be something like this, you know, like I do in the track. And then it's harmonised above in thirds. And you don't have to keep picking it, you know, the very idea of just moving your hand around and then pushing the bar down as you move kind of sustains the next note for you, so you don't have to worry about losing sustain so much with this technique. And like I said, the brutal picking, what I love about that is the other person who does it a lot and influenced me with this is Jason Becker. So instead of always using the neck pickup, you know, it's done on the bridge pickup. So when kind of doing this kind of descending picking lick, you know, that's kind of part of your hand is really allowed to dig in and just give this kind of kind of sound, you know, where it's really almost like, you know, and it has this kind of brutal sound to it. So yeah, Andy LaRocque, check him out, man. Okay, now it's Chuck Schuldiner section. So, the things that leapt out about his playing style were his harmonising in fourths. So for example, he might have a main lead line and the harmony will be a fourth below that rather than a fourth higher than that. And then the other thing is his repetitive picking licks, which to me would sound like he's playing them as fast as possible. There's no specific timing there. You know, I could be wrong, but they're very hard to decipher. You know, it's a sign of a good guitar player, you know, when they play solos that you just can't get your head around, you know. Pick as fast as possible and use the bridge pickup. And that's pretty much it for my advice. This main lead lick here is harmonised a fourth below, starting on the G string. And these repetitive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eighth note triplet type of licks, palm muted, lightly with your picking hand to get that sound jumping out there. And then the end lick, there's no strict timing for that at all. It's pick it as fast as you can, and you get somewhere close to some of the elements that Chuck uses in his solos. So enjoy. Hell yeah, now it's Marty Friedman time. Okay, I'll admit, he's one of my favourite guitar players of all time. Huge influence on me in terms of the way, well, he writes solos, the way he bends strings, the way he does vibrato, his weird phrasing, you know, I could go on. The only way, in fact, Marty probably hasn't influenced me is he hasn't inspired me to want to get a perm or anything like that, so I'm quite happy with my straight hair. So, there you go. Two things which I'll highlight now is his use of, I can't remember if it's called the Hirajoshi scale or not, because there is one called that, but I don't really care what it's called. Basically, you will take the 5th, the minor 6, and the root note, and the 9th of a scale. So, or an easier way of saying it is cut out the 4th and cut out the 7th of a minor scale, and you're left with. So I've got this lick here. Literally, all you do is you just take out the 4th and the 7th, and you've got that sound there. Other thing I like about Marty's playing is just the way his phrasing just cascades over the beat. It's very loose, and you know, he'll hold on to a note and it just carries on over until the next beat. Stuff like this. So that bend there, it's not in any hurry, it's in no rush. Just bend it up, relaxed, then put on some vibrato, and just hold on to it as long as you want. You don't have to stick to beat 1, beat 2, beat 3. So yeah, you can be relaxed with the bends and put on some heavy vibrato when you feel like it. You know, never rush anything. That's the Friedman way. Okay, we've just seen Marty Friedman, now it's time for his former guitar sparring partner, Dave Mustaine. I would describe Dave's playing, his lead playing, as, I don't know, like an angry Michael Schenker. You know, not necessarily with the same tone, but a lot of those pentatonic repetitive licks, but add in a lot of extra alternate picking, and, you know, you're sort of getting closer to the kind of territory that Dave inhabits. If you're going to try and either play one of Dave's solos or emulate his playing style while you're in a good mood, you might find it hard. You need to get angry. You know, that's kind of where it's at. So, stub your toe against a piece of furniture, or, you know, go out driving and let someone cut you up and really annoy you, and then rush home and grab the guitar. Okay, so I've just come back from making myself in a really bad mood, so now I feel like I'm ready to do this. The pentatonic thing is the biggest thing that leaps out about Dave's playing. That's E minor pentatonic. So what he does is he takes this stuff up in semitones. So there you have it, some angry guitar playing. Add that to your arsenal. Okay, it's time to pay some respect to Mr. Kirk Hammett. He often gets overlooked for people who are technically better and all that rubbish, But the bottom line goes is the guy writes memorable solos, and you can't take that away from him. Like a lot of players from that era, Kirk's playing was very much derived from, you know, the minor pentatonic and a lot of the new wave of British heavy metal bands that all those guys in the States were listening to at the time. So I decided to use Kirk's playing on the Kill 'Em All album as my inspiration for this. Before he found the batteries for his wah pedal, he was shredding it up on their first record, and I really liked the stuff on there, so let's take a look. A popular thing you'll see a lot in Kirk's playing is this. And it couldn't be simpler. Literally all you're doing is slowly bending up a string and just alternate picking. You might want to actually follow the tempo in the background and do 16th notes, or you might just opt to pick as fast as you can. Another thing Kirk likes to do a lot is, say if he's in the key of E, he'll bend up to the 9th and hit a 7th, a 5th and a 7th again, and it actually almost sounds like he's highlighting a different key. Like for example, if he's playing an E, it might sound like he's actually playing in B minor pentatonic because he's emphasizing those kind of notes. What we got there, we got a B minor triad over an E. So we got, and that can kind of give it a weird sound, but that is very unique to Kirk. So, kill 'em all with that. On the list of guitarists that I'm going through on this project, I would say Chris is up there with Michelangelo and Dimebag as the people that you've got to kind of be crazy to try and sound like. But I had to include them. You know, it wouldn't be right without these guys on there. One thing that sticks out to me about Chris's playing is how he will start phrases with really long bends that just go on for quite a while, especially over really fast backing. You know, like, got something like that, and it'll just be like, you know, he'll just hit this long bend that goes on for ages, and it's a really great contrast over the speed of the backing track, and it helps things stop sounding like it's just a barrage of notes. The other thing that Chris is of course known for is legato, and especially chromatics, you know. Stuff like that, you know. So yeah, get all your fingers involved and don't be afraid of chromatics, and work on your legato technique, and you know, you're into Poland territory there. Not literally. Now we approach Alex Skolnick's section. Great guitar player, what can you say? Brilliant tone, brilliant control, very melodic player, really good pinch harmonics as well. Like George Lynch, he is very good at using the flattened fifth. The thing that leaps out about Alex's playing is the way he repeats these motifs in his solos using the flattened fifth, and it's that which I'm going to look at now. So here we've got backing chord is E, so that A sharp is a flattened fifth. Tritone, the devil's note, and all that lovely, wonderful, evil, demonic, heavy metal stuff. It's pretty simple, I just hit it with one pick. And also he likes to hit these semi-harmonics here on the higher strings, so if you can kind of get your pick and your thumb to kind of clip the high E string there, and it gives you that kind of pinch harmonic sound to start off your lick with, and the rest is just, you know, pull-offs and hammer-ons. And repetition is the key here. You know, timing that over a really cool riff underneath is a trademark of Alex's sound, and it's really worth getting your head around that. So, enjoy. Okay, it's time to get the leather and studs out. It's KK Downing time. Okay, yeah, not in the way you think I might have meant it, but of course, Judas Priest, man, leather and studs, you know, it's the image. What can I say about Priest, you know, that hasn't been said already? I don't need to introduce them. That being said, if you really, really don't like Priest, then you should be ashamed of yourself, and you deserve to have your metal license revoked. I'm serious. Okay, to get a handle on KK style, you know, these guys all came from the blues. You know, a lot of these people were starting in the 60s and stuff like that, so blues was their influence, and they just kind of sped it up, you know, made it a bit hotter, you know what I'm saying? So, you've got stuff like this, you know. And, I mean, to get an idea of the kind of stuff he did, have a listen to something like Jawbreaker off the Defenders of the Faith album. You know, that's a classic KK solo there. And, as I mentioned in another vid when I talk about Jason Becker, using the whammy bar for vibrato as well, not just the finger, like, but you know, it's really rapid, and it is quite violent. You've got to really just grab that thing and just not be afraid, you know, and hope that it doesn't break. You know what I'm saying? So there you go, KK. Paul Gilbert time. Master of alternate picking. Well, one of the many masters of alternate picking. But people will definitely always hold Paul up there as one of the most articulate picking guys ever. And quite rightly so. The guy is a beast on the guitar. And a really funny dude to boot. You know, his passion for what he does and his passion for music in general and his knowledge of rock and metal and all that sort of stuff is just really infectious. So Paul is a really cool guy, and I'm really happy to include him on this list. Can't play like him, but, you know, who cares? Let's have a look. So the obvious thing is alternate picking. Alternate picking features a lot elsewhere in this whole track, so I'm not going to go over it. But what I wanted to do to separate Paul's playing is his idea of string skipping, or his approach of string skipping. There, each lick just repeats twice. But the real trick here is not only the speed of the thing, but just avoiding that B string and just the accuracy and everything involved. If you're watching this, you already know about these techniques, you know about stuff like alternate picking, you probably know about stuff like string skipping, so I won't go over the fundamentals of it, only to say that, you know, if you want to go into Paul Gilbert territory, you've got to look at string skipping. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Okay, it's time to look at Jason Becker. Well, what can I say about Jason? If you're already familiar with him, which you should be, then I don't really need to say anything. I mean, what a character, what an amazing person, amazing human being. And that's before he even straps on a guitar, you know what I'm saying? His guitar playing itself, I would categorise is very bright, again very slippery, the way he plays arpeggios and stuff like that. It has a very slippery quality to it, and I like that, you know, it's flowing. It's very flowing like water, you know, a weird hippie vibe, man, I know, but, you know, it is flowing. So you'll do a lot of arpeggio sequences which slide up, slide back down, slide up again, you know, they sound very busy, you know, I like that. That kind of thing, where he, when you get to the top part of the sweep, rather than pick it again, instead of going, which which gives you a very staccato sound. You know, he likes to do a lot of slides. And I like that. That's kind of the Becker sound. And he uses the whammy bar for vibrato purposes as well, which is something I really like. I think if you have a whammy bar, you know, and you don't do this, you know, you're kind of missing out, you know, so you're like... that kind of thing, so instead of, you know... that kind of thing, you know what I'm saying. So there you go, Jason Becker, what a legend. Now it's time for Greg Howe. How? Exactly. The guy's a phenomenal player. What can I say? He's got this special, what's called glissando vibrato. A lot of people never knew what it's called, but it is actually called glissando vibrato. Glissando is a very posh musical term for slide. And it's that back and forth kind of thing that he does. He's got great fusion chops, really good hybrid picking, and his tapping technique, of course, is worthy of a mention. So I'm going to look at those things here. The tapping lick involves what a lot of people call hammer-ons from nowhere. So I start the lick off with a tap, pull that tap off, and then I've got to hammer on with my index finger onto the E string here to get to the next one. So that's what that term means, hammer-ons from nowhere, meaning that that index finger there is the first thing to connect with the E string, and of course we've got to avoid the B. So that's a big staple of his playing. And the glissando vibrato, what is that? Well, it's this kind of thing, you know. And to do that, you literally do have to slide either side of the fret you're on. So to slow it right down, it would be like this. And it's one of those things that you really don't want people to listen to when you're practicing this, because they'll probably just kill you after a while of hearing you upstairs going for hours and hours and hours. So wait until everybody's gone out, or put some headphones in before you start practicing this technique. There you go. Frank Gambale, uh-oh, the thunder from down under, sweep picking, etc, etc, etc. Man, what else can I say? I won't. Let's look at some of the techniques. Okay, so first of all I have this kind of outside sounding lick that staggers over the beat, you know. And you'll notice from the tablature and everything that I'm not using straight alternate picking, I'm actually using an economy picking technique. And that's something that Frank is known for. You don't have to do that to play this lick, but when you start getting into outrageous speeds, getting a handle on economy picking certainly helps. Sweep picking is the next thing. So this lick, Frank isn't one of those kind of players that does the traditional sweep licks that do stuff like this, you know, where you kind of get to the top and you do like a hammer on and then a pull off, you know. You'll notice in a lot of Frank's stuff he actually works it out so his sweeps, when he gets to the top he's ready to come back down again, or he moves to another shape, so you don't really get a lot of that traditional kind of So you don't get a lot of that kind of stuff, hence why I've gone for... Every note is accounted for, and there's none of that hammer on and pull off and go back down sort of stuff. So a lot of complex arpeggios, it's really, even if it's not your type of music, and you know, jazz fusion can be a little bit creepy, but you know, it's worth checking it out because there's some fantastic licks going down. Okay, now it's time for John Petrucci, who, by all accounts, has the power to destroy the world with his guitar playing, and I kind of believe that, you know. He's a very admired guitar player for good reason. Again, precision, everything, but he's not just a one-trick pony. I mean, the guy can do anything, you know. He uses his technique to great effect, and, you know, he's got brilliant melodic control, brilliant sense of melody. To be honest, I don't really know what to do for John. The one things that stand out for me with a lot of Dream Theater solos is he doubles a lot of stuff up with the keyboard, so that's what I went for. And also, instead of having a very obvious linear picking pattern, I decided to kind of change it up a little bit. So when you look closely at it, you'll see what I mean. Okay, so let's have a look. It would have been obvious to do something, you know, that just went... something very linear and repetitive, but this whole... it goes straight there to the 12th fret from... and then... and that's a feature of John's playing. He does work stuff out. And doubles it along with keyboard lines, or harmonises it along with the keyboard, that takes him away from the usual diatonic guitar runs. And do I need to mention, precision is also the name of the game here. Very much like Viddy Moore, John can perfectly go from an alternate picked run to an absolutely no perfect bend, and just with no hesitation whatsoever, go blue, perfect bend, there you go. Michelangelo is also the other kind of guy who can do that. Perfect picking, amazing bend. What more can you ask for? Well, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. And the last guy is, well, me. We ran out of shredders, so we decided to tag one of my solos on the end. And it's from a future piece as yet to be unreleased called Hunter Becomes Hunted. And this is an excerpt of the solo. It's going to be the end of the solo. So it doesn't exhibit much of my actual playing style in terms of it's just a part of the solo. So if you want to get a real glimpse of what my actual real playing is like, I guess you're just going to have to check out my YouTube channel. Let's have a look. The whole thing is in E minor and it starts on the B string. And it just moves up diatonically through the scale, and always it's a 16th note sequence with 4 notes, and the last note is always going to be an open B string until we get up here, and then we have to transition to the E string, and the shape becomes a bit different here. We're only using 2 fingers on the neck now, and we're picking open string, picking back again. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4. And to end it, I use this sequence of 2-note chords, otherwise known as dyads, to end the solo with. And the picking again is just continuing alternate picking, but we're actually hitting the B string as well now, so the movement has to be a bit bigger to capture this. And then just chop it off at the end. So there you are, one of my own solos. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks very much for watching.